My fellow Scions, it has been some time, hasn't it? Too long, you're probably thinking. Too long since I last imparted a word of advice. And we know that our parents don't tutor us enough. Speaking for my father, and I hate that I have to, I can say that he often sent me on quests, he often gave me a mission, he often told me to do this or that, and it never furthered my own goals. It was always to achieve his own ambition, and he very rarely gave me the context, shall we say. So it has become necessary for me to teach other Scions, and for Scions to teach each other, because our parents are frankly absentee a lot of the time, if not outright malicious. Now, I may just be speaking for my relationship with my father. One could describe it as cold, perhaps frigid, but I've encountered enough Scions now with problematic relationships with mummy and daddy. So, believe me, you have my sympathies. My father often said to me, never achieve with physicality what one can with a simple stare or quiet word. He never favoured action or adventure when a simple threat would do, getting into someone's head and make them perform in a way that he so wished. That's the kind of thing he enjoys. I, on the other hand, do enjoy action and adventure. Why, many is there an occasion where my fist has had to crush someone's nose in order to get what I'm after, and many more times have I stolen something from somewhere and then had to flee a security guard, a pack of dogs, a rampaging monstrosity, maybe even a giant that's noticed what I've just stolen. Therefore, action and adventure is something I need to teach you about, because undoubtedly any one of you who are trying to form some kind of legend surrounding your deeds are going to encounter action and adventure at some point. It's necessary. Odysseus did not achieve everything he achieved by sitting at a desk and simply reading about Circe. He had to visit certain islands. He had to help blind a cyclops, that kind of thing. Now, let's talk about action and adventure, shall we? Because, as I say, they are integral, and you need to know the rules of the world, being the children of gods, if you are to succeed in the world. We'll leave combat for another tuition. Right now, we're just going to go into the fundaments of action and adventure, which are, for intents and purposes, initiative, simple actions, and reflexive actions. Let's start with initiative. If you've ever played a tabletop role-playing game before, you will know what initiative is. However, in Scion and other story path games, it works slightly differently in that you pair any skill that's appropriate with your cunning attribute. The skill is flexible, so providing that it applies to what you're doing in some way, you can use that skill. And this means you can be a bit creative, but let's take a simple option, such as you're about to engage in a foot race with someone. You'd use athletics and pair it with cunning to see who goes first. If you were trying to drive somewhere really fast, you would use pilot plus cunning. If you were trying to solve a puzzle really quickly while a giant was hammering on the roof above you and stones were falling and he was trying to crush you, but you're trying to solve this riddle before the place caves in, that might be enigmas plus cunning. Point is that your initiative is a flexible roll, and when you roll it, you count up the number of successes you get. That is your initiative place. However, and this is where things get interesting, everyone else involved in this little, whether it's a conflict, whether it's a competition, whether it's a flight to the death, not a fight, but a flight, because you will die if you stay still, you will all roll, you will all announce your successes, and then the group of protagonists can change their ordering, just as the group of antagonists or supporting characters that the story guide has rolled for can. Therefore, let's say you roll 4 successes, one of your companions rolls 3, another one rolls 2, and another one rolls 1. Well, your character may not want to go first. Maybe you would prefer to go last. Maybe you have a specific action in mind that you wish to take that would be better placed at the end of the order. In that case, all you have to do is speak among yourselves, place yourselves in whichever order you so choose, as long as the number of successes stays the same. So, Number 1 could become number 4. If number 4 becomes number 1, or number 2, or number 3, everyone can move around. But just the same, so can the story guide's characters. It allows, as I say, flexibility in the initiative system. It implies a certain level of foreknowledge of what's about to happen, and allows a bit of planning of how you intend to act, rather than thrusting someone who was unfortunately fast into the limelight when they weren't actually prepared to go. So now let's talk about actions. We have simple actions and reflexive actions. Simple actions, simply put, are actions that require dice rolls. That's about all there is to it. Usually you'll get 1 or 2 simple actions in a turn, if let's say you're in combat. But reflexive actions are rolls that don't tend to require dice rolls, or they're actions that don't require dice rolls, I should say, and are things like dropping to the ground, dropping something from your hand, switching your telephone off, listening to a conversation that's going on at the same time as your turn. These are all reflexive. They're things that you can do without any great effort. Or, to put it another way, they're actions that no one else is contesting. So, as an example of a simple action, for instance, that could be reflexive, if, let's say, someone is in a fist fight with you. You've just exited the bar, you've had a little bit to drink, you insulted the man, and he is now trying to punch you out. Let's say you try to disengage from the man. Maybe lucidity overcomes him and he thinks, oh, all right, fight's over. That's a reflexive action, stepping backwards. However, it's a simple action if he resists your attempt. At that point, you're going to be rolling something like athletics plus might or dexterity if you're trying to outmaneuver him, or maybe even close combat plus might or dexterity if that is more appropriate. The same goes for rising from being in a prone position. Let's say you drop to the ground beneath cover. Well, now you wish to stand up. Typically, that would be reflexive. But what if someone's trying to keep you down there? Then it becomes a simple action. You're going to have to roll for it to overpower the person who's trying to keep you down. This could even be psychological. Maybe someone is trying to pin you down with bullets. They're not hitting you. You don't know where they will hit, but they're certainly keeping you in place. So that may even require integrity plus, let's say, resolve for you to overcome your fear of the flying hail of lead to enable you to stand. And hopefully you won't get caught in the gunfire. Action and adventure can also take the place of complex actions. Now, I've mentioned complex actions before in another one of my tutorials, but to put it simply, they are like montages. Complex actions are where you have a series of actions in the course of, let's say, it could be hours, could be even days, but they are divided by something called intervals. Let's say, for instance, you're running a race in laps. Let's say you are building a device with multiple components. Let's say you are translating a lengthy text. You're not going to be able to do that in a single action. That's going to take some time. And so there will be a certain number of successes you need to roll in one of those intervals, another set in another interval, and so on and so on. That becomes complex. And sometimes when you're being chased, for instance, that can become a complex action, because at one point you're running down the stairs, another point you're running down an alley, and then you're trying to climb over a fence, another time you're diving into a car and trying to drive away, but they're driving behind you. This is a lengthy complex action, or a series of simple actions. Really depends how you choose to run it. But again, can be quite easily seen as a montage. Keep in mind that when you're performing a simple action, such as running away from someone, things like the terrain can affect you, can provide complications or sometimes enhancements. As an example, if I'm trying to run away and I'm running away and the floor becomes lava, that's a popular idea right now, then in that case you would gain complications to avoid becoming burned. A better example, although the floor has become lava in certain terra incognita that I've visited, would be a barrel spills and you're trying not to slip up in the oil, as an example. If the ground is difficult but not dangerous, so let's say you're trying to climb up a rocky cliff or the wall is slick, then rather than it just being a simple movement, then you would have to roll even if someone wasn't chasing you. So that might require something like athletics plus might to climb up it, pull your weight up. It's worth also considering, as part of action adventure, the idea of the chase. I mentioned already the running through the alley, the driving the car really fast. Well, sometimes you will want to add your own enhancements, or the supporting characters and your antagonists are going to add their own complications. So you're about to, let's say, both leap into your cars and tear down the road. The person who gets to the target first is either going to save them or kill them. So it's a fairly dynamic event. Well, if you have a head start, then you will gain enhancements relative to the rating of, the distance between you, as an example, or the speed at which you are travelling. So I mentioned enhancements in another video. Be prepared to suggest them as players. I should get an enhancement here. Much the same as if you stick a knife in the tyre of the person you're about to drive against, you've added a complication to them. That's a hazard. If you're trying to grab something as you drive or as you run and keep hold of it safely, then that may also be a complication. You essentially have to get an additional success in order to buy it off without dropping it, for instance. Or it could simply be that there's more successes required, no complication, because the thing isn't going to stab you in the hand. For some reason I was thinking of a blade, and grabbing it by the blade would probably be a complication. But if it was just like a ornamental vase, as I have stolen many of those from tombs in the past, then you just need to get more successes in order to pick it up. In short, action and adventure is part and parcel of being the children of God. They're very simple actions, really. Initiative, simple actions, reflexive actions, and the aforementioned complex actions all allow for a nice, dynamic, but fluid method of, governing the world in which we live. And after we are done, well, now that we are done with action adventure, we'll be moving into procedurals, which is a lot more exciting than it sounds. But for now, I leave you with action and adventure, and thank you very much for watching.